please take the video down? Okay.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting for Huron County Council. And I'd like to call this meeting to order. And having done that, I will read to you that council meetings are available live through Zoom, and recordings may be posted online on County of Huron's YouTube channel. You may be seen and or heard as part of these broadcasts, and your name, comments, and or presentation materials will become part of the public record. Just one comment to make note of this morning as we begin, and that was the Roma conference that a number of us just returned from last night. And I believe from what I heard, there was about 1,900 delegates there. And certainly the inaugural situation south of us and the pending elections here at home added a unique flavor to the events this year. And I hope each of you had an opportunity to glean information that's useful to bring back and had opportunity to network with others that were there. So that's my remarks for this morning. And I want to go to the approval of the agenda and be looking for a mover and a seconder for that. So Councillor Harding, and that's seconded by Councillor Finch. Those in favor? And that is carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest to bring to our attention this morning? Seeing none, then I'd go to the minutes of our previous meeting and ask if there's any errors or omissions to address. And if not, then I'd be looking for a mover and a seconder to adopt our minutes. So Pastor Warden McNeil would make that motion. And Councillor P. Heffer would second that. And those in favor? And that is carried. And we do have delegation this morning, and we have Julie Pauly and Dr. Miriam Clausen joining us, and they are going to be presenting to us, and I'm just going to turn it over to them. Once everything is geared up and ready, they can go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Emily, speaking. I'm just going to look to share my screen for you guys to see. I hope everyone can see that okay. Please let me know if you cannot at this point. So I just wanted to, again, thank you for allowing Dr. Clausen and myself to be here today to present the 2025 budget. I thought it might be important to outline how we actually got to this 2025 budget. So I'd like to provide a little bit of historical details for you. Over the last 5 years, and since HPPH came into fruition in 2020, there's been quite a shortfall in the ministry budgets and increasing expenses due to things like inflation and collective agreements. Our expenses have continued to rise, as many of you are aware of. Another thing of note, though, is COVID is now largely in our rearview window in regard to the resources that we are putting towards that, towards COVID. And so we are again putting more efforts into our core programming, which required some catch-up. So we did do some additional immunizations, home visiting of high-risk families, some routine inspections for medium and high-risk premises. There was some catch-up, so we did some additional ones in 2024 and 2025. Will be in 2025. In 2024, the board approved a budget, including the removal of 13.5 FTE from our organizational structure. It included a variety of classifications, both union and management positions in 2024. And so as we moved into 2025, the ministry was signaling again that we would be receiving a 1% increase. And some of the other considerations we needed to think about when we were moving towards our 2025 approved budget is that we did a fulsome review again of our operational expenses. And some of you may know that the draft standards that is the driving force behind what the health unit prioritizes are still in the works. We thought we might have them by now, but they're still in the works, and they are set to be released later this year. As well, we are undertaking a funding review of health units, and so we do not have a final final draft of that as of yet. So in order to balance the budget for 2025, we have removed approximately 6% of our program supply line. We are implementing again some gapping and layoffs in 2025. So we have 7.6 additional from the 13.5 FTE being gapped or laid off for 2025. And so in order to balance the budget, taking into account these items, the board has approved a 5% increase to the municipal levy. So the levy for Huron County will be $1,371,543 based on 2024 population, the municipal agreement of the disbursement of the various funds. So you all have received the revenue and expenses, and Dr. Clausen and myself are happy to answer any questions about how we got here or any of the line items that you may have questions about.
Thank you, Julie. And I'm going to, once the screen comes down, see if there's any questions for yourself or Dr. Clausen. I'm at a disadvantage. There we are. So, council, is there any questions, comments at this time? Seeing none, then I would be looking for a motion then to receive the presentation from Julie Pauly and Dr. Clausen. So Councillor Past Warden McClellan and Councillor Anderson would second that. Those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for the presentation and your time this morning.
Thanks so much.
We're at councillor comments. Is there anything anybody has under councillor comments this morning? Past Warden McNeil.
Oh, thank you very much, Warden Heffer. And I would just like to share at the Roma conference how great a job that our Director of Planning did, Sandra Weber, on a panel yesterday. Many of us were there to applaud her when she was introduced. And it is pretty amazing for the 8th year that Sandra has been invited as the planner to attend on that panel. And we should all be very, very proud of Sandra. And I wanted to commend her on that. So congratulations, Sandra. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments, Past Warden McNeil. And it was really interesting to note that they got so specific that they recognized her coming from Morris Turnberry. So, Councillor Klopp, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, that vote went pretty fast, but my understanding, so just if I may, I want to thank the board members that we have elected on our health board. I know it's a hard job, and the fact that there wasn't a lot of comments, but I think they're doing the best they can. It's my understanding that we really don't, as a council, don't have a lot of say when it comes to that board anyway. So it is what it is, the budget. But I don't want the hard work that we have our reps on there, that we thought it was just that we do recognize that, and if I want to get that point across. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Any other councillor issues to bring up? Seeing none, then I would be looking to our consent agenda, those 5 items that are under our consent agenda, and start off by asking, is there any specific item anybody wants to draw attention to? And if not, I'd be looking for a motion then to accept our consent agenda. Councillor Becker and Councillor McClellan, those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Anderson, did you have a question or comment?
Yes, when I was reading through, in one spot, I noticed that it had Councillor Van Diepenbeek, and I think it should have been Member Van Diepenbeek instead of Member Van Dieten.
Thank you. I noticed that as well. Thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you, Warden.
And I'm sure our clerk will make note of that. Last chance, any other comments? Okay, so we have already adopted the consent agenda, so we are going to move on to economic development. And our Director of Economic Development, Vicki Loss, is with us to answer any questions if anybody has any. Not seeing any hands raised, then I'd be looking for a motion to receive the report. Councillor Noel, Councillor Vanstone would second that. Those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Vicki. So we're to our fun topic of the day, and that is our Huron County budget. And Michael Bloomhagen is going to start and take us through this. And Michael, I believe you're going to just introduce the directors that will be speaking to this as well. So I'm just going to turn the budget section over to you at this time. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Warden. So yes, I will just introduce the directors as in the order that's listed in the agenda, just to keep things moving. So thanks to yourself, Warden, and the County Council. Again, this is our second day of our high-level budget presentations, where the directors will do that initial walkthrough of their draft budgets. And essentially, we'll follow the same process as last meeting with respect to our parking lot. So as you do have questions, or if there's things that we can't easily answer or you'd like some more information on, I'll write that down and we'll bring that back at our special budget session on February 12th. Slightly different for the presentations today as compared to last meeting. We'll actually, once the directors get through just their executive summary, then we'll flip over to their respective capital budgets for most of them. A little more capital intensive for the programs being presented today as compared to last week. So we'll just take a little bit of time to go through some of those capital projects as well, just in more detail. And at the end of the meeting today, we'll confirm the parking lot items. We'll just go through each one just to make sure that we've captured everything as intended. And just make sure there's nothing missing, and feel free to add anything that you'd like some additional information on at that point in time as well. So just as a where we are, as a refresher, we're at 8.39%. And I do feel that it's not an unreasonable budget increase based on the current pressures that we have and that we're facing today, without actually having to dive deep into kind of the current service levels. As you recall, I mentioned current pressure areas, primary pressure areas for this year, and also for the next few years moving forward, will really be our capital program within public works and our aging infrastructure with housing and property services. Some pressures that we're seeing with EMS, with the upstaffing and the potential relocation of our Kinburn Tucker Smith base to Seaforth. So that'll be a large project that we'll have to account for. The Gibbon Street project for housing that's going to be coming online later this year or next year. And also just within the corporate, just with our interest pressures. So if you just consider our asset management program and our reduction in interest, that's a little over 5% right there in terms of our budget. So the remainder is, some of the inflationary pressures that we're seeing. So it's not a totally unreasonable increase just based on where we're at and the pressures that we're facing. There's going to be a couple changes that we are going to have to make to the document. A few little updates within Public Works, which Imran will speak to. There's about 3 or 4 little adjustments there that net out to an increase of 68,000 for a few of the projects, and we're just going to adjust our OSIF carry forward for those, and that way there's no increase on the levy. But there is a more significant adjustment with one project of about 220,000 just based on a updated quote, and so that one will have to be discussed in a little more detail, and Director Khalid will speak to that in his presentation. And for the housing, I was not aware that the Bruce Power contribution of $1 million was over a 6-year period. So we're receiving $167,000 per year for 6 years. When I built the budget, I had that set up as a 1 year, $1 million contribution. So I recognize that full million as revenue. So I'm going to have to adjust the reserves to account for that. Doesn't change the bottom line. It's just going to flip, or it's going to have an impact on our reserve levels. And then as we receive those funds in the future, that will just repay our reserves. So I just wanted to make council aware of that. That is one change that I'm going to have to make in our budget. So with that, I will pass it over to Director Hall, who is going to walk through social services, housing, and also property services. And as I go through this, I'm going to share my screen. So I'll share the executive summary. Before we get into the capital program, I'll stop my sharing. If there's any questions prior to us moving to the capital, that way, Warden, you can actually see those that have the questions. Then I'll share the screen for the capital program and we'll do it and then essentially do that through the presentations. Okay, so we have page 43. Okay. All right. Barbie, you good?
Okay. Thanks, Mike. So good morning, Warden and members of County Council. I'm pleased to present an overview of the social services budget, followed by the property services budget, and offer thank you to our CAO and Treasurer and the Treasury staff for their support in the preparation of these two budgets. So beginning on page 348, the social services budget this year offers an increase of just over $396,000 or 7% over 2024. Several factors contribute to the increase, including a cost share increase required in Ontario Works, the salaries and benefits increasing to annual grid movement and cost of living increases, decreased funding for community housing debentures as debentures reach end dates, and homelessness pressures. In 2025, social services will continue to complete a number of projects as identified through our own department goal setting in alignment with strategic planning identified by Council and SMT. The work we complete covers the core functions of the Ontario Works, Children's Services and Housing Services divisions within the Social Services Department. The strategic priorities anticipated for the 2025 year include processes to recruit post-secondary co-op students, service planning with the new employment opportunities providers in Ontario Works, finalizing the centralized intake process, expanding childcare spaces, and the 10-year housing and homelessness plan. The 2025 work plan for social services includes a review of the programs and services funded by the Provincial Homelessness Prevention Program to ensure alignment with provincial direction, actioning the results of the Landlord Engagement Survey, the attraction, recruitment, and retention strategies within the childcare sector to engage with skilled workers and decrease the number of vacant positions, and to increase life stabilization supports for individuals on the employment continuum. The current staffing complement is 48 full-time equivalent positions. The homelessness programs coordinator is requested to become a permanent full-time position. The position was renewed in March 2024 for an additional one-year term, and it has developed into an integral part of the homelessness services being offered within social services. The position is mainly funded through external sources, plus a 0.5 FTE position last year that was not filled, and overall only requires 13% of the position to be funded with levy funding. Capital projects for the housing properties include accessible entrances at 2 apartment buildings, new windows and doors at Jane Street and Bayfield, domestic hot water tanks in all family units, life cycle replacement of coin-operated washers and dryers in all apartment buildings, and a replacement parking lot housing at a housing apartment building in Zurich as just some of the projects in the capital list, which we'll see shortly. And Mike, if you're comfortable, I'm going to move on to the property services budget and finalize that as there's a lot of crossover between housing and property services. So within the property services budget, which begins on page 410, the core services remain as capital project management, operational services, new housing development, external leaseholders, and asset management. In 2025, Property Services identified projects through the internal goal-setting processes, ensuring they align with council priorities. This includes the recruitment of post-secondary co-op students, review and updating of procurement documents, and the change ownership of hot water tanks in community family housing sites, and the increased scope of the preventative maintenance program. The Property Services budget this year offers an increase of $151,000 over 2024. The increase is reflected through salaries and benefits and annual grid movements, pressures on operating expenses such as insurance and materials and supplies. This increase also reflects the addition of the 20 units at the recently opened affordable housing building on Sanders Street in Exeter for operational costs. The current staffing complement is 7 FTEs. The addition of the 20-unit building on Sanders Street will require a realignment of existing staff for both maintenance and custodial services. The addition of Gibbons Street opening in the fall of this year will require additional staff, and a review of the staffing requirements in 2025 will assist in determining appropriate staffing and/or contractor levels. And finally, capital projects identify a net levy increase of $91,000 approximately, and this includes projects such as life cycle replacement of the rooftop unit HVAC units at the J&B building and 57 Napier, concrete work and water main repairs at museum, and Treasury Department renovations to ensure efficient use of workspace and life cycle upgrades as just some of the capital projects. This concludes the high-level overview of the social services and the property services budgets for 2025.
Thank you, Barbara. And I'm going to now go to council if there's any questions relating to the two presentations by Barbara. Councillor Klopp?
Sorry about that. Yeah, on the page 43, budget highlights, homelessness levy contribution. Is that a new line that we're adding?
Barbara?
Thank you. We've tried to identify which costs are strictly levy-based and which ones have been identified, which will be covered through homelessness prevention programs. So Mike, do you have anything further that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to indicate, no, it's not a new line. We're just illustrating the cost of the homelessness. So it's been embedded in the budget. If you look at the details, the detailed budget, we actually have a summary within there for the homelessness program. There's a couple sub-departments that get rolled up. So we're just highlighting that cost that council is contributing to this program.
Well, thank you. So is it increased from last year? From 546? Was it without looking or show me the page? Has it gone up?
It's
My
bear
question.
with me. I could find a couple of the details. I'll let you know the page.
That'd be fine. Thanks.
So on the detailed budget, it's going to be pages 402 and 403. Actually, sorry, that would be 4,000. And it's actually a decrease, Councillor Klopp, year over year. So it went from 677 down to 546.
Okay, any other questions? Anything for the parking lot? Seeing none, so thank you, Barbara. And Michael, we can continue.
Okay, so now I will share just the capital program for Barb's expenses here. So it'll be both social services and property services, just so you can see those details. Bear it's kind of hidden. I'll do it this way. Okay. Okay, so what we have here are the capital projects for social services. So in terms of some of the programs, 190,000 for accessible entrance, another 175,000. So the more detailed description in terms of where those are happening would be directly embedded in the housing, the detailed budget. But the 6.3 million for Gibbon Street. So this is a continuation of the construction cost through 2025. So the majority of that would be coming from reserves and some external funding. So we have donations from the Lucknow Kinsman, 50,000, plus we have the 167,000 per year over 6 years for the from the Bruce Power. For property services, we have listed here. So this would be the courthouse renovation just for the treasury area. That's 300,000, and we have some RTUs at a few locations, some boilers. That's really about it. There's nothing in detail there for property services. I don't know, Barb, is there anything specific there that you kind of want to highlight?
I think I provided a bit of the overview of where certain areas were, for example, the rooftop units, which buildings they were at, but happy to answer any questions. Or the accessible entrance and parking lot, that was in Clinton, apartment building in Clinton, the accessible entrance, Sanders Street, our community housing building on Sanders Street, windows and doors, Bayfield, and so forth, if the locations are required.
Okay, was there any specific direct questions for Barbara on those two screens? Not seeing any, then Michael, we can move ahead. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next we have Director Horseman for EMS. So just I will share the screen. And that is page 37. Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Hey, thank you, and good morning, everyone. The EMS budget pretty straightforward this year. I'll just quickly run through the high-level overview. Just a reminder that the core services in EMS are our primary care paramedic services, so our 911 services. Our community paramedics and emergency management are the three main programs. This year, we're proposing an increase of just shy of 609,000, which is a 6.77 increase. The bulk majority of the increase is in salaries and benefits, which is roughly 851,000. The bulk majority of that is between the cost of living increase and the proposed upstaff in the Bayfield station. That's recommended by the ORH report that you received just prior to the Christmas break. With that upstaff, there is a proposed full-time equivalency change of 3.74 positions. All of that really has to do with the Bayfield station. The other increases in the budget are significant increases in the budget There's some increases in the rent, which deal with the Brussels base that was recently opened this year, as well as renewal of the Clinton base agreement. And then you'll see some larger than expected repairs in a large increase in the repair budget of about $61,000. And that just deals with the increased costs with our fleet maintenance. I think what's important to know is that one of the larger increases that we need to be aware of is our WSIB costs continue to escalate. About another increase of a little over $80,000 into this budget. I'm sure that everybody's aware of first responder mental health wellness and mental health treatment. We're no different than any other spot in the province, and we are seeing escalated cases of mental health WSIB cases. So that's a significant increase on our budget. Other than that, in the operating budget, everything is pretty much just a normal increase, just a normal inflationary increase. There's no significant increases anywhere else. On the capital budget, the bulk majority of the capital budget is a replacement of end-of-life equipment, 2 ambulances, as you're aware, that we went through prior to Christmas, as well as one of our rapid response units. But those total about $830,000 of the capital budget. The defibrillators that are end of life and some auto pulse machines are the other major part of our capital budget. And then there's some associated costs with replacing other end of life equipment. The only other increase in the capital budget or new item in the capital budget is what you'll see listed as the Capital Networks digital messaging program, which will be a system that will allow us to instantly message our bases for anything that occurs that they need instant notification. We can also post memos and operational things in them. But basically right now, we are doing manual phone calls when there's a change, an operational change, such as the CT scan goes down at Goderich Hospital, and we need to tell all the crews that they can't go there for their stroke patients. They have to go somewhere else. Or road closures that occur. We have to physically call the crews and tell them where the changes are. This will help us alleviate some of that by instantly messaging and posting the message to all the bases at once. And as I said, the staffing changes in the full-time equivalency are 3.74, and they deal specifically with the upstaff that's proposed in the Bayfield base. That's the overview of the changes to the budget but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Going to go to council if there's any questions. I believe Councillor Finch would have a question.
Yeah, and thank you, and thank you, Jeff, for all the work that the paramedics do, and we really do appreciate it. I'm just wondering, with the cold snap we just received, we talked about generators for the bases. Where are we at with that? I can't recall. Could staff maybe enlighten me?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Warden. I can, in fact, check in on the timing of that report. That report moved over to Property Services because they look after our bases and they had a better understanding of the generators and the costing. So I can check with the manager there to see where we are on timing. I'm not aware personally.
I appreciate that. I think even with today, in the last few days, we've had this cold snap. If hydro goes out, we're going to have a real problem. So appreciate that.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions? Councillor Klopp?
Yes, thank you. Again, the report was back a while ago, but there's there'll be 3 people in Bayfield. So prior to that, if I remember right, Jeff, there was an ambulance being pulled out of the Zurich and over there as part of the rotation, but now there'll be a fire ambulance there full time. Is this what I'm understanding? And then Zurich is then back to its full. It doesn't share. Is that the bottom line here on this?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you. So currently there's a 12-hour day shift in Bayfield every day from noon to midnight, and there's a 12-hour day shift in Zurich from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. The proposal is that, the ORH proposal is that we make Bayfield 24/7. So there would be full 24-hour, 7-day-a-week coverage in Bayfield. That would not affect the coverage in Zurich. Zurich would still have 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Coverage coming out of the Zurich base.
Okay, but when Zurich would be pulled over in the Zurich base, the ambulance was sitting over in Bayfield. Was there not an ambulance at each spot?
Okay, sorry, through you, Mr. Warden. Yes, I understand now. Our deployment method is something that's called balanced emergency coverage. So every time one vehicle moves, if there's an area that needs coverage, then we move a vehicle to that area. So Zurich is often pulled into Exeter for coverage in Exeter, and Bayfield or Goderich would be pulled down to the Zurich station, and vice versa. When Bayfield's pulled away from the Bayfield station, then we're looking for another unit to come in and cover them. Unfortunately, as we get down to minimum car coverage, as you see that occurs in my monthly reports, that we get down to, not enough coverage at certain points through the day sometimes. There is a priority base, a logarithm that will tell the dispatcher where we want the coverage first. So basically where the highest call volumes are, we cover and make sure we have an ambulance there first. And the bases that don't have as large a call volume would be the bases that are left uncovered when we don't have enough coverage. So the goal is that we're always covering all of those bases through the time frames that we have staffing in place. It's just not always possible.
So nothing's going to change at the Zurich one. They're covered from 8, did you say 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.?
That's correct, yes.
And then after that, there's nobody at the Zurich hall, or I guess it shares with the county. Is that correct?
That's correct. The extra coverage will come out of Bayfield now. They would be stationed in the Bayfield.
Or Exeter, depending on where the call would be, right?
Correct. Yes, correct. Exeter still has 24/7 coverage as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Michael, did I see your hand up a minute ago?
Yeah, so just wanted to make 2 comments. One is Barb just mentioned or messaged me that that report will be coming forward in February. So stay tuned for that. And I just wanted to remind council, if you recall, I spoke to it at the last council meeting, but part of we know that there's going to be a delayed hiring of the staff for the Bayfield up staff. So we're reflecting full year cost within the EMS budget. I've got some potential savings within the corporate budget. So there's approximately 398,000 in savings that I'm reflecting corporately, just to in recognition that there is going to be a timing gap for when we actually up staff. So I just wanted to remind council of that, and I will share the capital budget for EMS. Okay, so we do have a couple new ambulances, plus a 350 each, plus a rapid response unit. We've got some defibrillators, some auto pulse, and some miscellaneous equipment. And we do have some carry forwards from prior years, just based on the ambulances that have been ordered in prior years. So again, just as Jeff has mentioned, there's that significant delay in timing from order to actual delivery of our ambulances. So you can see we've got a few here that are still pending delivery. So I will stop sharing there. I don't know if there's any questions on that.
So any further questions regarding that? Seeing none, then thank you, Jeff. And Michael, we can proceed.
Okay, so next on the list would be Imran for Public Works, Fleet, and Waste Management. So let me just share my screen here, and thank you, Imran. Okay, you're on the right. Bear with me for a minute. So that's pages 35 and 36. Okay, thank you, Imran.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Yeah, so excited to share the 2025 Public Works budget. I'll maybe just briefly talk about core services. So just as a reminder, we do the right-of-way management, including routine and winter maintenance. Obviously, we look after road, bridges, and culverts, traffic safety, drainage, general admin, including permits, which just as a reminder, again, we've been expanding and digitizing as part of our strategic priorities, and waste management. In terms of the budget itself, so we're looking at about just a little bit over $1 million increase, which reflects about a 5.82% increase over 2024. Total capital expenditures, it's about 21.6 million. It's a little bit of if in the highlights there's a bit of an error because we haven't changed the cost from the roundabout project being deferred, but in the table itself it's correct. Out of that, we're expecting about 12.7 million to be funded through OSIF and the CCBF fund. So that includes prior year allocations. Major projects for this year, we've got Dashwood Phase 2, the urban reconstruction that we're expecting to finish, expected to be around $2.55 million. We've only got one rural paving project this year. It's a sizable one at 20 kilometers, so County Road 7 up in the northeast corner of the county. And the anticipated cost is just about 6.9 million there. And in terms of major bridge projects, we've got the Bannockburn Bridge project, which also includes a little bit of storm sewer work on County Road 3. So that's about $3.9 million. In terms of our operating budget, so we've reduced our winter maintenance budget by slightly, just a couple of $100,000. We're just kind of looked at last 5-year averages and tried to maybe just narrow it down a little bit. With the winter we're getting this year, it's obviously a weather dependent thing and we'll have to reevaluate that next year, but it is something that we have reduced from last year. Want to talk a little bit about staffing changes. So we don't have any major changes proposed. We are requesting an additional summer student this year, which is about the only change. Just as a reminder to council, so County Public Works used to hire 5 summer students about 5 years ago, which was reduced down to 3 over the COVID period. And we just felt this year with some of our responsibilities, the operational responsibilities, our skilled operators are having to spend more time doing some tasks that really should be done by the students. So we're requesting that one of those students back and we'll reevaluate again this year and see if there's any need for putting it back up to 5 or not, but we would like to start with just one additional student for now. That's it for now. There are some changes for the capital projects that I'll maybe talk about fleet a little bit, and then once Mike shares the detailed capital projects, I'll talk about the changes a little bit there. In terms of fleet, so our obviously our core services include procurement, repairs, and maintenance, and licensing of all county vehicles and equipment. Just as a reminder to council, where our fleet is currently self-funded, which is so it's charged out to Public Works and other county departments. In terms of major purchases this year, so we have a new grader requested at $650,000, a payloader at $650,000 as well, and a backhoe at $225,000. There are a number of other fleet vehicles that are up for replacement as well, and no staffing changes to the fleet area. So that's pretty much the summary of it. And once Mike shares the detailed capital projects, I'll like to highlight some of the things there.
So is there any questions from council at this stage? Go ahead, past Warden McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you to Mike. Mike, I'm just looking through the executive portion I got up on the screen here, but when we talk about a budget increase of $1 million, how are we adjusting for the major capital projects like the Wingham Yard and stuff like that? Because if you just say you're up or down so many million over the course of a year, it can really throw those numbers out when you've got big projects like that. How do you adjust for those?
Right now, the way I've been doing it, just balancing out between reserves and our OSIF and gas tax funding. So prior to, just as an example, prior to the deferral of the roundabout, I would have had greater
Reserve.
Reserve, and also I would have fully maxed out our OSIF funding. So once that got removed, then I set aside, and now I'm deferring some of the OSIF funding for next year. So I'm actually carrying forward some of that funding. So what I'm trying to do is balance out to that 2.5% to 3%. So even though we might have pulled out some expense, then I pulled out revenue as well, just to maintain that our desired or targeted levy increase for the asset management program. So right now, I've just been managing it based on reserve levels and also the OSIF and gas tax funding. So, okay. But trying to maintain that county levy, and then I adjust the other ones to maintain that consistent levy increase.
So really that $1 million is just what we're getting from the taxpayer at this point then?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And that's part of like that little over 3% right now that we're kind of phasing in for the asset management program. So if you recall, over the next 10 years, we've recommended 2.5% on average to increase our levy. And this is part of that strategy, just to build up our county portion of the capital levy.
Any other questions for Imran or Mike? Past Warden McNeil.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mayor Heffer. And through you to Imran, I really like the idea of you hiring a summer student, Imran, again, to bring the complement up, because there, as you commented, those are tasks that a summer student can do that frees up our full-time staff to do other work. So well done. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yep.
Hey, Michael.
Okay, so I will share the details, or detailed capital budget for both fleet and public works, and I will let Imran speak to them. And we did have the one change in one of the projects that Imran will touch on. Okay, so Imran, I'll maybe just pass it over to yourself here. We do have a number of new projects, plus some obviously multi-year projects that are underway, and I'll just defer this to yourself.
Sure, thank you, Mike. So yeah, so the new projects primarily, as you'll see, they're engineering costs for future construction projects. So we've got a number of culverts there. We've got our geotech investigation for 17 and 12. Those are just works out nice. They're close to each other, so we're lumping two design projects into one, and we haven't really figured out if we want to tender them together at this time or not, but would like to consolidate the engineering for that. Like last year, we have 2 deck condition service for 2 of our bridges to just assess them and see if they line up with our asset management plan. Mike, can you scroll down? Yeah, right there is good. Just wanted to highlight, so County Road, so row 89 there, County Road 83 airport line intersection improvement. We're proposing some money in there for utility relocations. The project has been deferred, as you know, until 2026. But we're going to do some hydro relocations, and there's a culvert at the intersection that needs to be replaced that we don't think can wait. So there's some minor costs associated with that intersection that we still included. These costs would have gone into the construction project itself when we tender it out. So there's not really any change. It's just we have to hold on to some of those costs for this year. County Road 7 and Geotech Asphalt Assessment, so that's row 86 there, $6.9 million. That is one of the projects we made a slight adjustment to. We've added about $60,000 to it for there's 2 distress areas on that project that need a geogrid. So it's just something that was missed before. We've got that change reflected there. Mike, I'm not sure where it's the paved shoulders in this, but oh, there it is.
Right.
So row 76 there, paved shoulders. So it's showing as $150,000. This, again, as a reminder, there was a presentation at council a few months back of the request to include paved shoulders at on County Road 83, just west of Dashwood there, extending to Haters Farms. We had included 150,000 from our estimates as what we have on what we expect for that portion to cost. The ideal way to go about it would be to work with our contractor on the project, and we requested a quote from them, and it has actually come out to $370,000 for that portion. So that would be a major change that will be reflected at the final budget meeting there, but that's just something for council to be aware that the actual cost of putting those paved shoulders as proposed would be $370,000, almost a little bit double over what we were expecting. I did want to talk about that Pave 25 project, Mike. I'm not sure if you can.
It's in minor capital. Get this one here.
I just wanted to highlight that is a project that we will be removing. This actually by accident got duplicated, so we've allocated. It's a patching job basically, and we've included that in our operating budget, so that request out of the capital budget will be removed. Yeah, those were the major changes. The biggest change is the paved shoulders. It's just something we want council to be aware of, as it's we currently don't have a formal policy on paved shoulders. We are working towards that, and we're getting fairly close, but that is the cost for going ahead with it at this time. Yeah, we do have 2 bridge crew projects as we always do. So Clegg's Bridge and Roxter Bridge are expected to be completed by the bridge crew. And that's about it. If there's any other items that stand out, I'm happy to speak to them.
And just for council's understanding, so if we're wanting to proceed with the paved shoulders at 370,000, so that's an additional 220,000. So rather than just adding that straight on the increase as a levy, I would be looking at, again, maintaining that balance. I would be looking at upping our OSIF funding for this Geotech County Road 7 project. We've got about $1.5 million there as a potential carry forward. So I would reduce that or increase that to reduce the levy here to increase this to 370,000 just for those paved shoulders. So there'd be minimal impact overall, but it would have an impact on our availability of funds for next year if council wished to proceed with that project. And I'll just move down to the fleet. And Imran, if you wanted to provide a few details on the fleet, that would be great.
Sure, thank you, Mike. So yeah, it's just we have got some pickup trucks, obviously, as scheduled replacements coming up for this year. So there's about 6 or 7, I believe. We've got some smaller equipment, and as I highlighted in the summary, the major purchases this year are the one more grader, a payloader, and a backhoe. We do have some carry forward projects going on. So the tandem plow trucks, if you remember, have already been tendered out and approved by council. There's some pickup trucks in there that we're just awaiting delivery on. That gravel reclaimer we just haven't had purchase yet, and we're looking to purchase that this year. So just be a carry forward from last year. The vans, again, they're for social property services. So whenever they get approved or however they go about, it's still in the budget there as a carry forward from prior years.
Sure, that's the Homes van, Homes for the Aged.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the bus, yeah.
And I don't really have anything else to add on the fleet side, but yeah, happy to answer any questions for anything specific.
Past Warden McClellan, I saw you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'm just going to ask, could we move the paved shoulder to the parking lot so we could have a fuller discussion about that later?
That's an appropriate request. So Michael, you've made note of that? Councillor Klopp. I believe you're muted, Councillor
You're
Klopp.
muted.
Must have double clicked. Can you imagine that? Sorry. Yes, I'd like the bus for the homes to be put on the parking lot to be discussed, please.
Okay, Michael's made a note of that.
And just a couple questions on page 143, I guess, to through to the administrator. Just clarification, the Roxeter weeping bed is $60,000. Could you explain that to me, please?
That's sorry, I can if I can come back at the final budget with more details
Sure.
it is an improvement that we're looking in the Roxeter patrol yard there. But I'll have to get some specifics for that.
Yeah, please. I just comparing to our weeping bed. Also the fuel tanks at 299,000. If you could clarify that a little bit again. Maybe sometimes you have too much experience, but I know our budget, we're looking at fuel tanks for down at the marina, and we're skirting around those kind of dollars, but they keep telling us because we're close to the water. So if you could clarify that, thank you.
Absolutely, we'll bring it for the next meeting.
Thanks, Imran. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any more hands. Oh, yeah, Councillor Vanstone.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just on the paved shoulders, we'll have lots of time to discuss that, will we? Because there's lots of places in Huron County that have the same problem. And I live right beside one, which is Ben Miller Inns, and their patrons walk between the two places. And I've seen them almost get hit with cars. So I think we need a policy on this so I just want to make sure there's going to be some discussion when it's in the park.
Well, Councillor Vanstone, we will take the time we need to address those items in the parking lot at our full day budget session.
Thank you, sir.
Any further questions? All right, thank you, Imran. And Michael, I believe Homes for the Aged next.
Yes, that is correct, Warden. So Dana is here. Let me just 1 second. Just have to make sure I get my right. Not used to this fully virtual stuff anymore. Okay. Yeah. So that is page 42. All right, go ahead, Dana.
All right, thank you very much. I'm pleased to present the proposed budget for 2025 for the Homes for the Aged. This budget does include both facilities. So here in Lee, our 64-bed home in Brussels that has the 20 independent living apartment units attached to it, and the 120-bed long-term care home in Clinton with their 20 independent apartment units as well. So these buildings are approximately 32 years old. So we are seeing that some repairs that are needed for that, which will be reflected in our budget this year, as well as the next few years coming. Our goal for the homes have always been to provide quality care and services to our current residents, as well as our future residents of the homes. The care is guided in collaboration with the Ministry of Long-Term Care, Public Health, as well as the Ministry of Labor, just to name a couple. We do have some other external resources that we do use. We have 270 staff members approximately that provide care to our residents and maintain the buildings. We are a CARF accredited home, which does speak to the quality of care that we do provide to the residents in the home. So that's just a quick overview of our services. So for the budget, we are looking at an increase of approximately $224,511 or 3.21% over 2024's budget. This year does include our final implementation of the 4 hours of direct care funding. So this is an approximate cost of about $750,000 due to the reliance on agency, which we're working very hard to reduce the number of agency hours that we do provide. We've been working with those agencies to renegotiate some of our contracts, and we've been making some connections with some schools and looking at different recruitment options for that, and they've been fairly successful as well. And the increase, just to kind of give you an idea, this year's final increase is the equivalent of approximately 11.5 full-time positions for the homes. They're mostly going to be filled by personal support workers. Some of the capital items that I'd like to highlight, we are looking at air handler or HVAC, so the replacement of that. There are ministry requirements for temperature and humidity, all that in the home, so replacement of that. We're looking at an operational review, which is, or a service review, pardon me, which is approximately $150,000. We've had some additional funds included for the parking lot. We've had to look at an expansion of the parking lot due to our increased staffing. We're also seeing an increase in visitors coming to the home as well. So our increased dollars are reflective of that and needing to increase the front entrance parking and some of our apartment unit parking as well. We also are doing some IPAC replacement or some upgrades. So that would include replacement of flooring, like continuing that project. We are looking at replacement of our dining room furniture. They are wood furniture and it's not wipeable. So in collaboration with public health, that was identified. Our zero-turn lawnmowers have to be replaced. Last year, Huron View had to rent one to finish out the final month. For that, the rest of the items are continuing with additions of ceiling lifts to the resident rooms, some steam tables. So that's kind of the overview of the homes. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dana. Councillor Harding, I see your hand.
Just one quick question, and you probably covered this. That 11.5 hours of extra staff, is that right?
Yes.
Will that
it's 11.5 full-time positions. So that is the increase to the 4 hours of direct care. So it equals out to 11.5 full-time positions.
So that will make us compliant with the 4 hours per day per resident?
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dana? Yeah, Councillor Klopp.
Thank you. I believe it was in last year's budget. We increased the rents for some of our rooms. Is that reflecting at all in this budget yet? Thank you.
Dana?
Through you, Warden. That was the increase of the apartment units that we looked at, and yes, it would be reflective in this budget.
Councillor Heffer, did you have your hand up? You're muted. Councillor Heffer, you're muted.
Yes, thank you, Warden. I just a question, Dana, when you're talked about the 11.5 more workers there, but you said mostly support workers. What did you mean by mostly support workers? Maybe I missed something there.
Certainly.
Go ahead, Dana.
Through you, Warden. Yeah, so the increased direct care hours are specific to RNs, like registered nurses, registered practical nurses, and personal support workers. We mainly focus on the personal support workers. It has to be a complement of those departments specifically, and there is specific requirements on the direct care that they provide to the residents. So it can't be for like our RI coordinators or housekeeping dietary. They can't include any of that. So it is our personal support workers that we mainly have increased during, like with those hours.
Thank you for your clarification.
No problem.
Michael, you had your hand up there.
Yes, thank you, Warden. So I just wanted to share a little more information on the increase in the direct care. So that 11.5 full-time staff or equivalent staff, that's just for this year, going into 25. But since the implementation of this legislation, we've had to increase by 84,000 hours, and that's over 43 full-time equivalent staff. And that's not, we're obviously not just hiring part-time. There's a lot of casual and part-time staff that are part of that. So that's a very significant increase in our overall staffing complement. And while we get the direct care funding, which if we're hiring internal, essentially it would be cost neutral. But what it doesn't cover is the additional burden that comes along with that. So that has a significant impact just on our overall operations, just ensuring that we have can accommodate those additional staff. So not only does it impact hiring and that process, but that you also see the parking lot there as well. So we just didn't have the room to accommodate all these new staff that we have to have on site. Therefore, we're expending some county dollars to have to expand our services there. So there is an impact to some of this legislation, and I just wanted to highlight the scale of what we're seeing at the homes, and it's quite significant. So
thank you for that, Michael.
And I will share the capital budget with yourselves. Okay, and I did want to note too on the capital budget, we're bringing in an additional 800,000 this year from reserves, from the Homes Reserve Fund, to just assist with some of the overall capital. And there's also some one-time funding that's available that was received from the ministry, which is helping us fund some of those the HVAC air handler units for us. So Dana, if you just maybe wanted to quickly walk through for each home.
Yeah, certainly. So the resident floor, mechanical lifts and floor lifts. So we are looking at this should cover the end, like making sure that every room has a ceiling lift. And then the next couple years, we will be looking at replacing some of the other ceiling lifts that were initially put into the homes, and they will be at the end of their life. And then we will see about a 5 to 7 year gap where we won't need to replace any. So the next 2 years after this one should cover that at approximately 12 lifts per year. And then just general nursing equipment, some beds that need to be replaced. We're looking at some steam tables, very minimal in office furniture, but you will see that the zero-turn lawnmower is on there, and the air handlers are on there as well. The IPAC upgrades, that's what includes the the replacement of all the carpet within the homes and any of those upgrades that we need to make for the replacement of furniture that's not wipeable, any of the wood. When the homes were built, they had a lot of wood throughout them, which made it feel homey, but now they're not seen as IPAC friendly. So then there's a few minor repairs or upgrades to the apartment units. So as the apartments become vacant, we do replace the vanity and kitchen cabinets in those, as well as the floors. Those are reflected in the budget as well. And then the parking lot expansion. When we had that engineered, there was more grading that needed to be done, as well as looking at the options for the front parking lot and the expansions there. We have the carry forward of the generator. So then for Huron Lee, they're quite similar. Some floor lifts that need to be replaced, a little bit of office furniture there that needed to be replaced, minimal dietary equipment, because they did replace their walk-in freezer this past year, or in the process of that right now. Similar air handlers, IPAC upgrades, and the lawnmower as well. So they're similar to what the what Huron View was in budget costs.
Okay, thank you, Dana. I'm going to again ask council, is there any questions for Dana regarding capital? Don't believe I'm seeing anything, so thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
And Michael, we're on to economic development.
All right. Thank you, Warden. So I will share Vicky's budget. One second. And that is on page 41.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Warden. And I'd also like to begin by thanking the ECDEV team and Lisa Harvey from Finance for their support of the creation of this budget for 2025. The department full budget starts on page 256 of your detailed budget. This budget includes activities of the Economic Development Board, the Huron Business Centre, the Local Immigration Partnership, Ontario's West Coast, local food, and sector supports, including workforce, agriculture, manufacturing, transit, and investment readiness. This year is one of a number of moving parts, not the least of which is the economy itself. Our proposed budget reflects a steady approach to an uncertain environment and acknowledges that we will also need to be flexible and agile as the year progresses. At this time, the department will see the reduction of one staff position. This is the Economic Development Coordinator position that was previously funded through the RED workforce contract. It will continue to sit unfilled in our organizational chart. 2025 is the last year of our current strategic plan. So we will see the creation of our 2026 plus plan through consultation with our municipal partners, key collaborators, and our business community. As we develop our focused and impactful strategic plan, we will more fully understand the skills and abilities that we will need in that unfilled position. Our LIP contract for 2025 to 2028 is currently under negotiation. We were thrilled to learn in late November that we would be offered a contract. The details of this contract are currently under negotiation and the talks continue. You will see related estimates for the LIP program in this budget based on our best estimate at this time as we learn further what is expected from Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada. 2024 saw the exploration, customization, and implementation of a client relationship management system. This system will increase efficiencies in reporting client services and business continuity. So the full cost of the CRM is in this year's ongoing in this year's budget as well. This year, there will be some training costs to make sure that the CRM is being fully utilized. The economic development has also acquired local data resources available through the website. These resources will serve the needs of our partner municipalities, strategic partners, county departments, and not-for-profit organizations throughout the county. One of our other moving parts this year was the anticipation of the Ministry of Rural Affairs strategy or mandate letter. We received that Monday at Roma. They have released Enabling Opportunity, Ontario's Rural Economic Development Strategy. This document was released, as I said, at Roma, and it shows significant alignment with the work of the department and the priorities we have set, match closely with those of the province. The RED program will now be the Rural Ontario Development Program, or the ROD program, and will have $10 million annually over the next 2 years. This is an increase from last year's $5 million. Once the focus and parameters of that announcement are released, we will be seeking funding to support the work of the department. So we anticipate that provincial grant line will rise with a successful ROD application. This concludes a high-level overview of the Economic Development Department budget for 2025, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Vicki. Do I have any questions for Vicki? Councillor Klopp?
Thank you, Vicki. I think maybe you answered, but just wanted to be clear when you looking on your page 41. I had a note here, said, why is the revenue sliding down from 705 and 620? Is that your anticipation of what RED was and now ROD, and you're hoping that they've increased the budget? Is that where you're referring to?
That will be definitely part of it. We have also applied for some other grants, but with the uncertainty of the times, we didn't feel comfortable putting it in the revenue line until we knew further.
Oh, totally. Thank you. As always, your background comes to the forefront again. So very good. It was good news, that realignment the other day, or increasing that budget, and I'm sure you will use every trick in the book to see if we can get some. Thank you.
We'll do our best.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Vicki. Michael?
Okay. Thank you, Warren. And we don't have any capital for economic development, so nothing to share there. So just in terms of some concluding comments, I'm going to share the parking lot just to make sure we've got everything. And then if there's anything else that council wishes to add, please feel free to do so. That way we're prepared, or better prepared as staff for our special budget day. And the way that day is essentially going to work, we're going to go through each of these parking lot items. We'll have a report for each item, which we'll go through with council, and please take as much time as you require for each item. And this is really where we get into more of the debate and some of the more detailed budget discussions in terms of direction. And we're hoping to finish off that meeting with really a target increase for the budget, and where we as staff can take that away and then bring it back in at a subsequent meeting, probably beginning of March, with the budget for your approval. So that's essentially how that special budget day will go. But I'm going to share the parking lot. Find it. Okay, so not a lot on it, but happy to add. So what we have from our first day one, we've got our agency staffing report, some information on the agency for the homes, so that'd be usage, costs, etc. From our BTS, just a more detailed report on our structure of staff licensing. especially with Office 365 and some of our productivity software. Some additional information being requested for the Gibbon Street housing project, so reserve usage and also a breakdown of costs. Some more information just on our overall staffing and some of the pressures there, so which I have labeled here as HR staffing report. Paved shoulders, the bus for the homes for the aged, weeping bed at Roxeter, and some more information on the Zurich fuel tanks. So I don't know if there's anything else that we've missed or misinterpreted, but I will just open that up to send that back to yourself, Warden.
Pass Warden McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. What I don't see on there, and I'd like to add, is the court security costs. I do agree that we need to start picking up that tab, but I'm not sure that we should bite the whole thing in year one. So I'd like to have a discussion about that.
Okay, so that'll be added to the parking lot list. CAO Wark, I see you've joined us. Is there something you would like to add?
No, through you, Mr. Warden, just wanted to be available if council had any questions or just provide further clarity on the special budget day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Back to the parking lot. Is there anything else that anybody has? And I'm sure if you were to contact staff ahead of that meeting, they'd be happy to talk to you about additional items as well. I'm not seeing, Councillor Dietrich,
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I just like to have maybe those generator costs come back. I guess I'm not quite used to that kind of money for a generator, but if we could get some kind of explanation, it would really help me. So if that's possible, thank you.
Okay, Michael?
Just for clarification, would that be at the homes, Councillor Dietrich, like Homes for the Aged?
Oh, sorry. Yes, it is.
Okay. And Warden, a couple more comments if we're done with the questions on the parking lot.
CAO Wark?
Just wanted to point out that I believe Councillor Klopp had some additional comments that he wanted to make.
Yeah, I see Klopp and Harding both had hands up. So Councillor Klopp?
Yeah, just to echo what our chair, Warden, has said. Yeah, that day, if there's any issue any councillor has that wants to talk about, of course, but if you can think about it ahead of time to help out, that's great to our staff. Just an overall feeling I have right now, I know 3.9, I just have a hard time with that, looking at inflation, etc. And I just want to let that known to the fellow councillors, and we look forward to the meeting and discussion.
And I believe there'll be lots of opportunity after we're done with those items at our next budget meeting that we can hopefully all have some ideas in our head of where we would like to give staff direction on that number. Councillor Harding, did you have your hand up a minute ago?
Yeah, just a quick question. My shorthand's not very good. Will that parking lot list, can we have that sent to us or put somewhere that we can?
I believe it's safe to say that would become part of our agenda for that day. Yeah.
Yep. And if needed, we can send it out in advance, just as a Word document directly to council. I just don't know the process of that, but that's where the clerk could. But yes, it will be, everything that's listed there will be part of the agenda.
It would be helpful if we had it a little bit ahead, a couple of days to make sure we're not missing something.
Fair enough, and I'm sure staff can comply with that. All right, Michael.
Yeah, just and Councillor Klopp kind of alluded or introduced what I was just going to say, and I don't know if we want to have maybe just that initial discussion today in terms of kind of a desired level of an increase, just for staff to get a sense of council's appetite in terms of what they're looking for. I don't know if that would be premature for the meeting today, just to have that initial discussion, or if we would prefer just to leave it for the special budget day. And I don't know what your preferences are there, Warden, but just thought if council was willing, but it could also be a little premature as well. But I will defer that to yourself.
Well, I'll share what's on my mind is that I would really like to digest a little more on our budget day and get the information and the feedback from staff on those parking lot items that we've referred to. And I suspect most of council would be looking for opportunities to bring that number down, but I think it'd be best to have more information in front of us before we tackle that.
Perfect.
I'm seeing a few nods on the screen, so I think Michael, and appreciate the offer, but I think we could hold that number setting till after the end of the next budget day.
Perfect.
Seeing nothing else, that's wrapping up our budget discussion. So I would be looking for go ahead, CAO Work.
Thanks very much. So through you, Mr. Warden, we can just send, as Treasurer Blumhagen indicated, happy to send just a Word document out with that list of items on it. We also, we always send the agendas out the Friday before our meetings. So you will, regardless, have a number of days to process all the information that is contained within the parking lot, those reports as well. So there will be a good amount of time for you to be able to process and make sure everything's covered.
Okay. Is that satisfactory to council? Yep, that's good. So, all right. Thank you for that. And I'd be looking for a motion to receive our budget presentations today. Councillor Vanstone, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Those in favor? That is carried. And I am going to call a short comfort break at this time, and we will reconvene in about 7 minutes. All right, we are at correspondence in the agenda, and there is 8 items under correspondence. Is there any one particular item anybody wants to speak to? I am not seeing any, so I would be then looking for a motion to accept the correspondence, not specifically dealt with. Councillor Ginn, seconded by Councillor Noel. Those in favor? And that is carried. And Susan, I'm going to ask a clerk question. Do you need a motion for that we've already supported as well?
No, that's just to indicate to everyone that we have previously supported them. Yep. So we're good with what you've done.
Just lost in my paperwork here for a moment. All right, thank you. So is there any new or unfinished business that needs to be addressed at this time in the agenda? And seeing none, then is there any notice of motion to bring forward? Seeing none, we do have no bylaws to address today, so we do have a close to the public session, so I would be looking for a motion for us to enter into our closed session. Past Warden McNeil and Councillor McClellan would second that. Those in favor? And that is carried. So Susan, once you've got everything set up for close, just make us aware and we'll begin at that time.
Okay, thank you, Warden Heffer. So at this time, we're going to be moving into a close to the public session. Those of you that are logged on at this time and are not part of that session, I'm going to ask you to make a decision. You can either stay on and we'll put you into a little parking area that you can't hear or see us. If you're not interested in staying on with the meeting, I ask that you disconnect. I'm going to give you a couple seconds just to make that decision. So for those that are staying, we're going to be sending you an invitation to join as a panelist, and you need to accept that. If you don't accept that, then I'm going to actually remove you from the meeting.
Looking for motions. Okay, so I would now be looking for a motion to rise from our closed session. And that would be Councillor Anderson and seconded by Past Warden McClellan. Those in favor? That is carried. And I would turn over to our CAO, Megan Wark, for a rise and report out of our closed session.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Warden, the purpose of going into closed session today was for council to receive information regarding MOU with the Women's Shelter Second Stage Housing and Counseling Services.
Thank you, Megan. And I would now be looking for a motion to proceed with the direction given to staff during our closed session. And that is Councillor Finch, seconded by Councillor Harding. Those in favor? And that is carried. Our upcoming meetings are posted here, so make yourself aware of what you're responsible for. And I'd be looking now for someone to confirm our actions of the morning. So Past Warden Ginn, seconded by Councillor McClellan. Those in favor? And that is carried. And who would like to adjourn our meeting for the day? Councillor Dietrich and Councillor Heffer. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you for your time this morning and enjoy the rest of your day.